My grandmother warned me. The thing is, my grandmother was dead. Look, I know how that sounds. If you'd told me this story 2 years ago, I would have smiled politely and just slowly backed away. I'm Sienna. I was, I guess, what you'd call normal. I had the life. You know, the one you see on those perfect Austin lifestyle blogs. The sprawling downtown loft with the floor to ceiling windows. The successful, handsome as hell fiance, Marcus Thornhill, an architect who was literally designing our future. We were 3 weeks away from the wedding. 3. The non refundable deposits were all paid. The dress, this simple, elegant sheath I'd actually cried over, was hanging in my closet. My life hadn't always been this glossy. My parents were killed in a car crash when I was 8. Just gone. And my grandmother, Dorothy, she was the one who picked up all the pieces. She wasn't just my grandma, she was my rock, my best friend, the person who taught me how to be strong. And then, just a month before the wedding, she was gone too. It felt cruel, like the universe was testing me. Marcus was amazing through it all. He held me while I sorted through her things. He kept telling me how proud she would have been, how we were going to start our new life honoring her. He was my anchor. Or so I thought. The night after her funeral, it happened. The first dream. I'm telling you this now because I have to. Because you see stories like this on true crime shows, but you never, ever think the monster is the man sleeping next to you? I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. How I went from planning a honeymoon to planning an escape. How I found out the perfect life I was living was built on a foundation of lies so deep, they were planning to bury me right under it. This is going to be heavy. It's not an easy story to tell, and I'm definitely going to need a friend to get through it. If you want to hear how it all went down, and how I fought back, maybe stick around. You can follow my story right here, that way you won't miss what happens next. It started that first night, right after the funeral. I'd cried myself to sleep, my face buried in one of Marcus's shirts, trying to breathe him in instead of the overwhelming smell of funeral lilies that seemed to cling to everything. I fell into that heavy, suffocating sleep that only comes after grieving. And then, I wasn't alone. I woke up, but I wasn't awake. You know that feeling? When you're trapped somewhere between sleeping and the real world? My heart hammered against my ribs. Someone was sitting on the edge of the bed. It was her. It was Grandma Dorothy. My logical mind, the Sienna who balanced budgets and signed contracts, screamed, "This isn't real." But my heart just shattered. She looked solid. Not like a ghost, but like her. She was wearing her favorite blue cardigan, the one with the worn elbows, and I could smell her. That crisp, comforting scent of lavender she always carried. My breath caught. I couldn't move. She just looked at me, her eyes so sad but so fierce. I remember her voice. It wasn't a whisper in my head. It felt like it was right there in the room. She said, "Sienna, cancel the wedding." Just like that. Cancel the wedding. I tried to speak, to ask why, to tell her how much I missed her, but I was frozen. "Go to Diane's house," she said, her voice urgent. "Go to his mother's house. In her bedroom, behind the family painting, there's a safe." I was so confused. Diane's house? Marcus's mom? We were close. Or I thought we were. "The code," Grandma Dorothy said, leaning in closer. "The code is 1847, 1847. Please, Sienna, discover the truth before it's too late." And then I bolted upright. I was in my bed, alone. The room was dark, silent, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. My t-shirt was stuck to my back, drenched in cold sweat. I fumbled for my phone. 3:15 a.m. I told myself it was a grief dream, a nightmare. My mind was just broken. I was stressed about the wedding, heartbroken about my grandmother. Of course I was having terrible dreams. I got up, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to brush it off. But the next night, it happened again. Same dream, same blue cardigan, same smell of lavender, so real I could almost taste it. "Sienna, cancel the wedding." This time, her voice was sterner. "The code is 1847. Go to the house. Go." I woke up shaking. This time, I couldn't brush it off. 1847. Why that number? It wasn't her birthday. It wasn't mine. It meant nothing to me. I didn't tell Marcus. How could I? "Hey, honey, I know you're grieving your future grandmother-in-law, but just so you know, her ghost is telling me to call off the wedding and break into your mom's house." He'd think I was having a breakdown. Hell, I thought I was having a breakdown. The third night, I was almost afraid to go to sleep. I left the light on. But she came anyway. She didn't speak. She just sat on the bed and looked at me. Her eyes, they weren't sad anymore. They were pleading. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. I woke up with a scream stuck in my throat. That was it. 3 nights. The same message, the same number. My grandmother was a practical woman. She didn't believe in nonsense. She believed in evidence. She believed in seeing things with your own eyes. If she was telling me something, it wasn't a metaphor. I sat there in the pre-dawn light, the city still asleep, and I felt this shift. The part of me that was grieving took a step back, and the part of me that she'd raised took over. The part that knew how to survive. A part of me was screaming that I was insane, that I was about to destroy my entire life over a hallucination. But another part, a cold, quiet part deep in my stomach, knew the truth. That wasn't a dream. It was a map. On the 4th night, I didn't sleep. I just waited. But the dream didn't come back. It didn't have to. The message was delivered. 2 days later, I got my chance. Marcus had to fly to LA for a last-minute site inspection. He kissed me goodbye at the door, his hands on my waist. He told me I looked tired. He told me to rest, to stop thinking so much, and to just focus on the wedding. The way he said it, it sounded less like a comfort and more like a command. The moment his Uber turned the corner, I was moving. I drove to his mother's house in Westlake Hills. Diane's house. The drive felt like moving through water. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I kept telling myself to turn around, to go home, to call a therapist. That I was grieving and paranoid, and I was about to destroy the best thing that ever happened to me. But my foot stayed on the accelerator. She'd given me a spare key months ago for emergencies. "You're family now, darling," she'd said, pressing the cold metal into my palm. I guess this qualified as an emergency. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the lock. The house was silent. Diane's home is perfect. Always. Like a pristine museum exhibit. Not a cushion out of place. Not a speck of dust. It always made me feel a little on edge. Like I was the one messy thing in her perfect world. I didn't stop to take off my shoes. I went straight up the stairs, my sneakers silent on her thick plush carpet. My heart was so loud, I was sure a neighbor would hear it. Her bedroom. It smelled like expensive potpourri and something metallic. And there it was. Over the fireplace. A big, gaudy, gold-framed oil painting. It was the official family portrait. Marcus, Diane, and his late father. All of them smiling, looking triumphant. I put my hands on the heavy frame. My stomach turned. I felt like a criminal. I felt insane. I pulled it away from the wall, and my breath just stopped. It was there. A small gray metal square set right into the drywall. A digital keypad on the front. It was real. My grandmother. Oh God, Grandma. I reached out, my finger trembling. I could barely see the numbers. I pressed them. 1, 8, 4, 7. There was a soft click. The handle turned. I opened it. I don't know what I expected. Jewelry, stacks of cash, gold bars, but it was just paper. A few thick manila folders. I pulled out the first one. My name wasn't on it. The name on the tab was Victoria Chen. I opened it. The first document was a birth certificate. Official, state of Texas, for a girl, Riley Chen, born 7 years ago. I scanned the lines, my eyes buzzing. Mother, Victoria Chen. And then, father, Marcus Allen Thornhill. The air left my lungs. It was like I'd been punched in the chest. No, no. It had to be a mistake. A different Marcus Thornhill. It had to be, but it wasn't. I tore through the rest of the folder. Bank statements. Not his main account, but a private one I'd never seen. Monthly transfers, thousands of dollars, every single month for 7 years. Child support in the memo line. And then, tucked in the back, I found the photos. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, the papers scattering on the carpet. They weren't old college pictures. They were recent. Marcus, this Victoria, and this little girl, Riley. At a pumpkin patch, all of them in flannel. Carving a turkey at Thanksgiving. Last Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving he told me he had to spend at a design retreat. They were sitting in front of a Christmas tree just months ago. The little girl on his lap, all of them in matching pajamas, smiling, laughing, happy, a family. He'd told me Victoria was just an old college friend he ran into sometimes. He told me so many things. My fiancé, the man I was going to marry in 3 weeks, he had a whole other family, a secret 7-year-old daughter, and his mother. His mother wasn't just his mother. She was his accomplice. She was keeping his secrets locked away behind her own portrait. I just sat there, on her floor, for I don't know how long. Minutes? An hour? My brain just short-circuited. I couldn't process it. A daughter, a 7-year-old girl named Riley. A whole life. Every memory I had with Marcus from the last few years suddenly felt fake. Every late night at the office, every business trip. Was he with them? Was he kissing me goodnight and then driving to her? I felt sick. I actually leaned over thinking I was going to throw up all over Diane's perfect beige carpet. But nothing came. There was just this hollow, aching cold. And then I saw it. Back in the safe. There was one more folder, tucked all the way in the back, almost hidden. It was thinner. And it had my name on it. Just Sienna. My hand was steady now. The shaking was gone, replaced by this strange, icy calm. I pulled it out. It wasn't wedding documents. It wasn't honeymoon plans. It was a life insurance policy. A thick, multi-page document. My name was at the top as the insured. The policy amount. My eyes scanned the page, trying to find the number. There it was. $2 million. 2 zeros earned, zeros owner. My heart didn't stop. It just started pounding. A different kind of beat. Not fear, not panic. It was cold. Hard. I flipped to the beneficiary page. Who gets the money? My fiancé, Marcus Thornhill. I told myself it was fine. This is normal, right? People getting married take out policies on each other. It's responsible. But then I saw the date. The policy effective date. It was 2 months ago. The world tilted. 2 months ago? That was right after Grandma Dorothy's will was read. That was the week my inheritance was finalized. The inheritance I hadn't even touched. The money she had left me. I'd told Marcus. I'd told him I wanted to use that money to build something, to honor her. That it was our foundation, our future. He'd held my face in his hands and told me that was the most beautiful idea he'd ever heard. And then he took out a $2 million insurance policy on my life. My inheritance was substantial, but it wasn't millions. This was different. This was a payout. Underneath the policy, there were a few printed out emails, chained together, between Marcus and his mother. My hands didn't feel like my own as I read them. Diane. Is the asset secured? Marcus. It's in place. Activated as of Tuesday. Diane. Good. The wedding is the deadline. After the honeymoon, we can finally resolve this. The other financial problem. My mind flashed to the bank statements, the child support payments to Victoria, the thousands of dollars every month. They weren't just planning a wedding, they were planning a solution. The coldness I felt before? It was nothing compared to this. This was a deep Arctic freeze. This wasn't just a man cheating. This wasn't just a man with a secret family he was embarrassed about. This was a long con. The pieces slammed together in my head so hard it hurt. The whirlwind romance. The push to get married quickly. His help with my finances after Grandma died. The insurance policy. The honeymoon he was planning. Somewhere remote. Just us, he'd said. Oh God, they were planning to kill me. They were going to marry me, wait until the honeymoon, and I was going to have an accident. A tragic newlywed drowned or fell off a cliff. And Marcus, the grieving widower, would inherit my grandmother's legacy. And cash in a $2 million policy. Enough to pay off his secret family forever and live like a king with his mother. I wasn't his fiancé. I was his payday. I was the target. I looked at the smiling faces in the family portrait above the fireplace, the smiling faces in the photos with Riley, the sadness I felt, the grief for the man I loved. It vanished. It just evaporated, and in its place, something new, something hot and sharp and terrifyingly clear. Rage. They didn't just break my heart, they put a price on my head. I got up off the floor. I carefully put every single paper back in its folder, but I didn't put them back in the safe. I took out my phone, and, standing in the cold, silent bedroom of the woman who was helping plot my murder, I started taking pictures. One. By. One. I drove back to my loft in a daze. I put the key in the door. The place I'd loved, our sanctuary, it looked different. It felt thin, like a movie set. Every photo of us on the shelf, every piece of furniture he'd picked out, it all felt like a lie. My hands were ice, but they were steady. I walked to my laptop. I uploaded every photo I'd taken. The birth certificate, the bank statements, the smiling Christmas photos, the $2 million policy, the emails. I saved them. I emailed them to a new secret account I just created. And then I emailed them to a second, even more secret account. I deleted the originals from my phone. I wiped the recently deleted folder. I cleared my browser history. I was methodical. I was a machine, the part of me that wanted to curl up on the floor and shatter into a million pieces. I locked her in a box. There was no time for her. When Marcus got home 2 days later, I was waiting. I'd spent those 48 hours practicing how to smile, practicing how to look. Broken, grieving, the perfect, fragile, emotionally exhausted bride-to-be. It wasn't even hard. I was broken, just not in the way he thought. The sound of his key in the lock was like a gunshot. My whole body tensed. He walked in, dropping his designer duffel bag by the door. "Sienna, I'm home." He looked. Normal, just Marcus. Handsome, tired from his flight. He smiled when he saw me, that easy, $1,000,000 smile. "Hey you, I missed you." He walked over and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me in. I braced myself. His expensive cologne, the one I used to love, the one I'd bought him, it smelled rancid, like chemicals. I had to fight every instinct in my body not to recoil. I leaned into him. I let my head rest on his chest, right over the heart that was. I don't even know what was in there. A calculator. He kissed the top of my head. He told me he was sorry to leave me alone for so long, especially after the funeral. He said I felt tense. I let out a shaky breath. I'd practiced this. I told him I was just overwhelmed. That with the funeral and the wedding so soon. I was just so stressed. He held me at arm's length, his hands on my shoulders. His eyes were so sincere. It was the most terrifying thing. He told me, "I know, baby. I know. Just hold on a little longer. A few more weeks. Then it's just us. All this stress will be gone. I promise." My blood ran cold. All this stress will be gone. I looked down, trying to play the part. I told him I was worried about the money, that the wedding was so expensive, and with Grandma's estate I hadn't even. He put a finger to my lips, gently. "Shh. Don't you worry about that. I'm the man. I take care of things. I take care of us." I kept my eyes down. I almost wish we'd just eloped, I whispered. Just run away, somewhere quiet. His smile. I could feel it, even without looking, that warm, indulgent smile. He told me, "I actually have a surprise for you." I looked up. A surprise? He told me he'd finalized the honeymoon plans. He said he knew I was stressed, so he just took care of it. He said he pulled a lot of strings and managed to book that cliffside villa, the one in Big Sur. I froze. My heart didn't stop. It just froze. We'd seen that place in a travel magazine months ago. I remember exactly what I said. "God, it's beautiful. But look at that patio. It looks dangerously beautiful." I'd laughed. And he hadn't liked it. He'd shaken his head and said it was too isolated, too remote, that he'd prefer a resort with people. But now, his eyes were bright. He was so proud of himself. He told me it was all confirmed. He said it's completely private. No neighbors for miles. The listing, he said, even bragged that there was no cell service. He said the staff leaves at 5 p.m. and then it's just us, Sienna. Just us and the ocean and that incredible view. It's the perfect place to begin. He was still smiling. He had no idea what he'd just done. I was just a problem to be resolved. He and his mother thought I was a fragile, grieving, stupid little girl. They thought I was so blinded by love and grief that I wouldn't see the freight train coming. And that arrogance, that was his mistake. He didn't just book a honeymoon, he confirmed the crime scene. He just handed me the ware, and I was going to use it to burn his entire world to the ground. I left the loft. I couldn't breathe in there. I couldn't be in the space he'd designed for us. I got in my car and just drove. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot 9 miles away under a flickering fluorescent light. I just sat there, the engine off, the silence screaming. He had a daughter. He had a plan. He had a cliffside villa with no cell service, the box I'd locked my fear in. It was starting to break open. I was shaking so hard I could barely unlock my phone. I had one person, the only person, my best friend, Harper. I called her. It was after 11 p.m. She picked up on the second ring. I couldn't even form words. This sound came out of me. This horrible, high-pitched, broken sound. She was a lawyer. She's trained for panic. She just said, "Sienna, where are you? Right now." I told her. She said, "I'm 5 minutes away. Do not move." When she pulled up, I just got out of my car and into hers. I didn't say anything. She didn't ask. She just drove us back to her apartment, took me inside, sat me on her couch, and poured 2 very large glasses of whiskey. She put one in my hand. She told me to drink it. Then she sat across from me. "Tell me, from the beginning." And I did. I told her about the dreams, the lavender, the safe, the code, the birth certificate, the photos, the $2 million insurance policy, the honeymoon. I watched her face. I was waiting for her to tell me I was crazy, that I was grieving, that I was misinterpreting everything. But Harper just listened. Her expression went from concern to confusion to this cold, sharp focus that I recognized. It was her courtroom face. When I finished, I whispered, "I know I sound insane, Harper. I know." She just shook her head. "No, you sound targeted." I took a shaky breath. "So what do I do? Go to the police? Tell them. Tell them my dead grandmother told me my fiancé is going to kill me?" "No," she said, her voice hard. "They'll think it's a domestic dispute. They'll tell you to cool off. They'll send you home. And then he'll know." She stood up and started pacing. "He'll know, and they'll just speed up the timeline." That thought, it made me sick. "Okay," she said, stopping. "We need to stop guessing. We need facts. We need to know everything." I just looked at her, helpless. "I have the facts. I have the photos." "You have his secret," she said. "You don't have theirs. We have the what, but we don't have the why. Why 2 million? Why not 5? Why not just your inheritance? The insurance policy. That's specific. That's a number they need to hit. This isn't just greed, Sienna. This is a business plan. and we need to see their books. She picked up her phone. She told me she had a guy, a private investigator. The best. He was expensive, he was discreet, he was ruthless. I nodded. My grandmother. She left me that money to build a life. I guess this is it. I'm using it to save my life. Harper made the call. The PI Day, a guy named Kessler, met us an hour later in a 24-hour diner. It was all very surreal. I told Kessler everything. I showed him the photos on my phone, the ones I'd emailed to my secret account. He didn't even blink. He just looked at the pictures of the policy, the emails between Marcus and Diane. He just asked, "What do you want to know?" Harper answered for me. "We want to know about the other financial problem. We want to know about Marcus Thornhill Architects. We want to know about Diane Thornhill. We want to know every dollar they have and every dollar they owe. And find this woman, Victoria Chen. Find out what she knows." Kessler just nodded, took a sip of his coffee, and said he'd be in touch. It took him 48 hours. Harper and I were camped out in her apartment. I was supposedly at a spa weekend I'd invented. My phone was blowing up. Text from Marcus. "Miss you. Can't wait for our honeymoon. Love you so, so much." I'd just text back, "Love you too. So relaxing." My skin crawled with every word. Kessler called Harper's phone. She put him on speaker. His voice was flat. "Well, you were right. Your fiancé's got problems." He laid it out. Marcus Thornhill Architects was a ghost ship. It was drowning in debt. He hadn't landed a significant project in over 2 years. The fancy car, leased, the loft, rented, and he was 3 months behind. He was a fraud, a very handsome, very charming, completely broke fraud. But that wasn't the why. That was just Marcus. The real story was Diane. Kessler said, her husband didn't leave her rich. He left her holding the bag. A very heavy bag. Diane's late husband had been into things. High-stakes gambling, shady investments. He owed some very, very bad people a lot of money. And when he died, that debt transferred to his estate, to Diane. The museum in Westlake Hills was mortgaged to a degree the bank was about to seize it. The art was fake. The jewelry was replica. Her entire life was a house of cards. And then Kessler dropped the bomb. "There's a balloon payment due," he said, on one of her husband's biggest private loans. The collectors are. Not the kind of people you file for bankruptcy against. They're the kind of people who break legs. Or worse. My mouth was dry. How much? $2.5 million, Kessler said. Harper and I just stared at each other. My inheritance. Plus the $2 million insurance policy. It wasn't just to make them rich. It was to pay a debt. And, Kessler added, when is this payment due? I could barely breathe. When? The week after your honeymoon. I finally understood. This wasn't just a cold, greedy plan. This was a desperate one. They were cornered. I wasn't just their ticket to a comfortable life. I was their only way out. I was the lamb they were leading to the slaughter because they were trapped in a cage with a lion. Diane wasn't just her son's accomplice. She was the one holding the gun. She'd been grooming Marcus, using his own secrets, his secret daughter, as a leash to keep him in line. She was the architect, and a desperate, cornered animal. That's the most dangerous kind. I was sitting in Harper's apartment. It was our war room. The whiskey was gone. We were on our 4th pot of coffee. It was 3 a.m. The adrenaline from Kessler's call had worn off, leaving just this. Raw, vibrating terror. It was a debt. A real, terrifying, broken legs kind of debt. This wasn't just a sociopath. This was a cornered animal. 2 of them. Diane and Marcus. And they weren't just going to let me walk away from the wedding. If I canceled, they'd be desperate. They'd lose everything. They'd just find another way. They'd speed up the timeline. I was trapped. I had to go through with the wedding. Or I had to disappear. Forever. Harper was pacing. She kept saying we had to get ahead of it. We needed more than just the why. Well, we needed leverage. We needed an ally. And there was only one other person in the world who was as betrayed as I was. Kessler had found her, Victoria Chen. He'd given us her address. She lived in a small garden-style apartment complex in a totally different part of Austin. Not the high-rise luxury Marcus and I shared, Not the Westlake Hills mansion, just a normal place. A place for a single mom. Harper told me it was a bad idea. She said, "Sienna, you don't know her. What if she's in on it? What if she's part of the con?" But I knew she wasn't. The bank transfers. They were. Just enough. Enough for rent, for food, for a kid. But not enough for luxury. It wasn't the payment of an accomplice. It was the payment of an obligation. He was paying her to stay quiet, to stay away. I had to go. I had to see her. I went alone. I parked across the street. I watched her apartment for 20 minutes. I saw a little pink bicycle on the porch. My heart ached. This wasn't a mistress. This was a mother. I finally got out of the car. I walked up the pathway. I knocked. The door opened. She was beautiful, but tired. Deeply tired. She was wearing sweatpants and a college t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. She looked at me, confused. "Can I help you?" I didn't know what to say. My name is Sienna. I'm Marcus Thornhill's fiancé. The blood drained from her face. It was instant. The recognition, the horror. She knew who I was, but not as his fiancé. She tried to close the door. She told me I needed to leave. I put my hand on the door. I told her I wasn't there to fight. I told her I knew about Riley. I told her I thought we were both in terrible, terrible danger. That word. Danger. It stopped her. She let me in. The apartment was warm. Toys were scattered in the living room. It smelled like a home. I sat on her couch. I didn't waste time. I laid it all out. I showed her the pictures of us, my ring, the wedding date. I watched her just crumble. She told me he'd been lying to her for 8 years. 8 years. He'd kept her in this apartment. He'd told her he was trying to get free from a complicated work arrangement. He'd told her I was a colleague, a work friend he had to be seen with. He'd been promising her for years that they would be a real family. He was just waiting for the right time. And then I showed her the rest. I showed her the $2 million insurance policy. I showed her the emails between Marcus and Diane. I told her about the debt, about the honeymoon. She went from crying to silent. She just stared. She put the pieces together. She realized if I died on that honeymoon, the money would go to Marcus and Diane. They would pay their debt. And then they would disappear, and he and the child support would be gone forever. She and Riley would be left with nothing. Her grief. It turned into the same thing I felt, that cold, hard rage. She looked at me, her eyes, just steel. She told me she had 8 years of his lies saved on her phone, 8 years of texts, of broken promises, of evidence. She told me, he will not get away with this. He will not put my daughter in danger. We weren't rivals. We were survivors. And we had a wedding to plan. Harper's apartment had become our command center. It was a sea of coffee cups, legal pads, and printer paper. It was me, Harper, and Victoria. A strange, broken, and unbelievably furious little club. We had the what. We had the why. Now we needed the how. My first instinct was to just run. To pack a bag, drain my accounts, and disappear. Change my name, move to a different country, and just be gone. But Harper, in her calm, logical lawyer mode, dismantled that idea in 30 seconds. I could run, but Diane and Marcus couldn't. They were trapped by their own debt. Those collectors weren't just going to forget about the $2.5 million. The due date was still the week after the wedding. If I disappeared, Marcus and Diane would be ruined and desperate. They would be cornered animals with nothing left to lose. How long before they hired someone to find me? How long before they pointed those collectors in my direction? I would never be safe. I'd spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. No, running wasn't an option. We couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Harper was adamant. We had a pile of circumstantial evidence. a he said, she said nightmare. A good lawyer, and Diane would have one, would paint me as a hysterical, grieving fiancé. They'd say Marcus was just helping his mother, and that I'd misunderstood. They'd get bail, and then they'd know I knew, and they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. My stomach turned. I was trapped. I had to move forward. And then I looked at the invitation sitting on Harper's coffee table. Embossed, cream-colored, Sienna and Marcus. And I knew. The wedding. It was the perfect trap. It was the one day, the one place, where I would be surrounded by 150 witnesses. It was the one place they had to pretend to be the perfect, loving family. Their masks would be glued on so tight, they wouldn't be able to breathe. It was their stage. They'd spent a year building it. They were planning a tragedy. I was going to turn it into a true crime documentary. And they were the stars. The how suddenly became crystal clear. I'd told Marcus weeks ago that I wanted to do a surprise for him at the reception. A little slideshow, a tribute to our love, to our families. He'd loved it. He'd actually teared up. He told me that was the sweetest thing he'd ever heard. He told me to coordinate with the wedding planner to make sure the AV was perfect. So I did. Harper, my maid of honor, took over. She'd spent the last 2 days on the phone with the event coordinator. She'd confirmed the equipment, a high-definition projector, a 20-foot wide screen that would drop down from the ceiling right behind the head table. She'd even arranged a tech walkthrough the day before the ceremony, just to test the video. We had our Trojan horse. While Harper secured the battlefield, Victoria and I built the army. She was incredible. She went back through 8 years of his digital shadow. Every text message promising her marriage. Every late-night voicemail where he called me his obligation. Every financial transfer. She found photos he'd sent her from our loft. He'd take pictures of himself in our bed, telling her he missed her and that he was stuck at a work thing. Kessler, our PI, delivered the final payload. He'd gotten it all. The official default notices on Diane's house, the loan agreements from her husband's creditors, the official lease agreements on Marcus's leased life, the final damning piece, a bank transfer from Diane to Marcus 2 days after my grandmother's will was read, with the memo, for the new policy. Harper and I spent an entire night putting it all together. We didn't build a legal argument, we just told the truth. We built a slideshow. It started with a photo of Riley, his daughter. It moved to the bank statements, the child support. It moved to the texts from Victoria. Then it faded to me, our engagement photo. And then the $2 million insurance policy with my name on it. And finally, Diane's debt, the why. Harper made one last call to an old friend from law school, a guy who was now a prosecutor in the DA's office. She invited him to the wedding. She told him to sit in the back. She told him he wouldn't want to miss the toast. The plan was set. The slideshow was on a secure hard drive that wouldn't leave Harper's purse. I just had to survive the next 3 days. I had to go to the rehearsal dinner. I had to smile. I had to raise a glass to my future with this man. I had to walk down that aisle in that white dress, knowing the man waiting for me wasn't my future husband. He was a monster, and I was about to expose him to the world. The rehearsal dinner was a masterpiece of deception. It was held in a private room at one of those ridiculously expensive Austin restaurants, the ones with tasting menus and wine pairings. The room was all dark wood and soft lighting, filled with flowers. It was intimate, romantic. I felt like I was floating above my own body, watching a movie of my life. There I was, in a simple white dress, smiling. My hand was in his, Marcus. He was radiant. The perfect, loving groom. He kept looking at me, his eyes full of adoration. He'd lean in and whisper how beautiful I looked, how he couldn't believe how lucky he was. Every time he touched me, my skin didn't just crawl. It burned. It was like a chemical reaction. But I'd practiced. I'd practiced in Harper's mirror for hours. I'd lean into his touch. I'd smile. I'd whisper back. The whole night was a performance. I was playing the part of a lifetime, the blushing, slightly overwhelmed, deeply in love bride. And they were playing their parts too. Diane was glowing. The perfect, welcoming mother-in-law. She made a speech. She actually cried. She raised her glass and told everyone how she wasn't losing a son, she was gaining the daughter she always wanted. I met her eyes across the table. I smiled. I smiled at the woman who had signed off on my murder. The acid in my stomach was so sharp I thought I might actually be sick, but I held her gaze. I raised my own glass. Harper, my maid of honor, my rock, was right beside me. She was magnificent. She was the only other person in that room who knew the truth. She was watchful. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. She kept her purse, the one with the hard drive, on her lap the entire night. The dinner dragged on, course after course, laughter, toasts, people sharing sweet memories of me and Marcus. Every word was a lie. I was surviving on adrenaline and a single, cold, clear thought. Just one more day. Towards the end of the night, I saw it. Marcus and Diane were near the bar, standing close together. They thought everyone was focused on the dessert. I was watching them in the reflection of a dark window. The performance was over. Diane's face, the loving, tearful mask, was gone. It was hard. She grabbed Marcus's arm, not a gentle touch, a grip. Her nails dug into his suit jacket. She was hissing at him. I couldn't hear the words, but her face was pure venom. She was angry. No, she was panicked. And Marcus, his charming groom face was gone too. He looked sullen. He looked like a petulant teenager being scolded. He ripped his arm out of her grasp. He shot a look at her that was just pure resentment. And then, just as quickly as it dropped, the masks were back on. Diane patted his cheek, Marcus forced a smile, and they turned back to their guests. But I'd seen it. I'd been so focused on their united front, this perfect evil partnership. But it wasn't a partnership. It was a hostage situation. He was in this. But he wasn't the one in charge. She was. She was the one with the real debt, the one with the real terror. He was just the tool, the pretty face she was using to get the money. And he hated her for it. Their alliance wasn't built on love or loyalty. It was built on fear. And fear. Fear makes people sloppy. Fear makes people crack. That one single second. It gave me everything. The last bit of strength I needed. They weren't a monolith. They were a house of cards, trembling in the wind. And I was the gust that was about to bring them down. Later that night, I was back at Harper's. I couldn't go back to the loft. I'd told Marcus I was having a traditional bridal sleepover with my maid of honor. He'd thought it was adorable. I stood in her guest room in the dark, looking out at the city lights. My wedding dress was hanging in a garment bag at the hotel, waiting for me. I wouldn't even see it until the morning. I thought about my grandmother. I thought about her lavender scent, her urgent voice. Discover the truth before it's too late. I discovered it, Grandma, and tomorrow. Tomorrow wasn't a wedding. It was a trial. I wasn't a bride. I was an executioner. The morning of my wedding, I felt nothing. I was completely, totally empty. Numb. It was the strangest, most terrifying calm I've ever felt. Harper was with me in the bridal suite. She was a fortress. She wasn't my maid of honor. She was my general. She'd checked the hard drive 3 times. She'd confirmed with the prosecutor. She'd confirmed with Victoria. The dress was beautiful. A long, simple, white sheath. When I put it on, it didn't feel like a wedding dress. It felt like armor. When it was time, Harper handed me my bouquet. She just looked at me. No words, just a single determined nod. It was time. The music started. That song, the one I'd cried over when we picked it. Now it just sounded like a funeral march. The doors opened, and I saw him, Marcus, standing at the end of the aisle under this massive arch of white flowers. He was crying. Real tears. Actually dabbing his eyes. He was perfect. The perfect, handsome, emotional groom. My stomach turned. Beside him, Diane, beaming. She looked victorious. The Queen Mother, she'd done it. She'd found the solution. I started walking, one foot in front of the other. The room was a blur of smiling faces. 150 people, all of them. Watching a fairy tale. They had no idea they were at an execution. I kept my eyes on him, on the man who was weeping at the sight of his $2 million payout. I got to the altar. He took my hand. His was warm. He whispered that I looked like an angel. I smiled. I think. The ceremony was a joke. A fever dream. The officiant talked about love and trust and honesty. I stood there, a statue in white, and listened to him talk about honesty. Then, the vows. Marcus went first. He'd written his own. Oh, he was good. He talked about how I'd saved him, how I was his anchor in the storm, how he couldn't wait to protect me for the rest of our lives. The guests. They awed. Then it was my turn. I didn't write anything. I just used the classics. I looked right into his eyes. In sickness and in health. My voice was clear. It didn't even shake. To love and to cherish. He was beaming. Till death. Do us part. I held his gaze as I said it. I put all the ice in my soul into those 5 words. He thought I was choking up. The officiant said, "You may kiss the bride." This was it. The hardest part. He put his hands on my face and he kissed me. It wasn't a kiss. It was a transaction. It was the feel of a spider on my mouth. I didn't flinch. I just endured. The room exploded. Applause. We were married. We walked back down the aisle, him raising our hands in the air like a champion. We were a fraud. The reception was loud. Clinking glasses. Laughter. We had our first dance. I let him pull me close. I rested my head on his shoulder. My body was screaming, "Run, run, run." But I didn't. I let him hold me, and over his shoulder I scanned the room. I saw Harper by the AV booth giving a tiny nod. I saw the prosecutor at the back table quietly watching. And I saw them, Victoria and Riley, slipped in the back, waiting. It was time. The toasts. The best man, his college friend, probably another liar, gave a stupid, drunken speech. Then Harper. She was brilliant. She raised her glass. She talked about truth, about honesty, about how, in a world full of complicated situations, she was so glad I'd found my resolution. It was a masterpiece of hidden meaning. Marcus and Diane just smiled and clapped. They had no idea. Then it was my turn. I stood up. I took the microphone. The room went quiet. I smiled. My bride smile. Thank you all so much for being here. My voice was sweet. Marcus, he's overwhelmed me with surprises ever since I met him. He smiled. He blew me a kiss. And I've been keeping a secret. I have a little surprise for him, too. He put his hand on his heart. Oh, Sienna, you didn't have to. Oh, but I did, I said. I nodded to Harper. I told everyone. I put together a little video. Just a look back at our story. The whole story. The lights dimmed. The giant screen, 20 feet wide, whirred and dropped from the ceiling behind us. Marcus squeezed my hand. He was so excited. The screen flickered. And the first image was not our engagement photo. It was a birth certificate, state of Texas, blown up 20 feet high. Riley Chen, mother, Victoria Chen, father, Marcus Allen Thornhill. You could hear the air leave the room. 150 people. Just gasp. I felt Marcus's hand. It didn't let go. It froze. It became this claw. He turned his head to the screen. He didn't have time to process it. The next slide hit. A photo. Marcus, Victoria, and a little girl in matching Christmas pajamas. The little girl. Riley? On his lap. The room. It erupted. Whispers. Who is that? What is this? Marcus let go of my hand. He stood up. He looked at me. His face. It wasn't love. It wasn't confusion. It was rage. He tried to say something. That it was a lie. A hack. A terrible joke. But the slides, they kept coming. Faster. A new slide. Bank statements. Monthly transfers. Child support. A new slide. A text message from him to Victoria. I have to be with Sienna tonight. This work thing is almost over, I promise. A new slide. Another text. She has no idea. She'll never know. People were standing up. His family, his aunts, his uncles. They were staring at him, their faces just horror. And then the slide I'd been waiting for. My name. Sienna. A $2 million life insurance policy. Beneficiary, Marcus Thornhill. Policy effective date, 2 months ago, and right next to it, a document from Kessler, Diane Thornhill, default notice, loan amount due, $2.5 million. Due date, the week after my honeymoon, the whispers. They stopped. It was just dead silence. The cold, hard math of it. Diane. She made this sound, this choking sound. Marcus was. He was shaking. His face was chalk white. He looked from the screen to his mother, to me. I was still holding the microphone. He was sputtering, trying to explain that it was a misunderstanding, that I was crazy, grieving. Crazy? I said. My voice. It wasn't sweet anymore. It boomed. It was cold and clear. Grieving? Yes, but not crazy. I looked to the back of the room. Victoria? And she stepped out of the shadows, holding Riley's hand. She walked, slowly, right down the center aisle, right towards the head table, the entire room. Frozen. Diane. She just collapsed. Fainted. Hit the floor. The prosecutor. He was standing up. 2 police officers, who I hadn't even seen, were now standing by the main exit. Marcus. He didn't see them. He didn't see his mother. He just stared at Victoria, at his daughter, and then he looked at me. The trap was sprung. The masks were gone, and there was nothing. Just silence. The deafening, absolute silence of the truth. The silence in that ballroom. It didn't last long. It broke. Like glass. It wasn't just noise. It was a wave. People leaping to their feet. A collective gasp from 150 people. Phones. God, the phones. Everyone's phone was up, recording. Diane. She didn't just faint. She was. A heap of expensive silk on the floor. Her brother was trying to revive her, his face a mask of purple, screaming for a doctor. And Marcus. He just stood there, trapped, between the 20-foot screen of his crimes, his mother's body on the floor, and Victoria. She was magnificent. She walked right up to him. I couldn't hear what she said. I didn't need to. Her face. 8 years of lies, 8 years of stolen hope. It came out. She wasn't screaming. It was colder than that. It was precise. Little Riley, poor thing, was just hiding behind her mom's leg, clutching her skirt, watching her father just dissolve. He tried to touch Victoria's arm. I swear he tried to charm her, even then. Even at the end. That's when the officers stepped in. They were quiet. They were calm. They just flanked him. They told him he needed to come with them. I heard the words, conspiracy to commit fraud and further questioning. I watched them. I watched them turn him around. I watched them put his hands behind his back. The hands I was supposed to hold. The hands that were supposed to push me. The flashbulbs from the guests' phones. It was blinding. Marcus. He looked at me. Just once. His face. It wasn't love. It wasn't hate. It was nothing. He was hollow. He'd been exposed, and there was nothing left inside. The wedding. That was the explosion. The days after. That was the war. My name. My face. It was everywhere. The bride's revenge. The honeymoon plot. I became a story, a local legend. They called me hysterical. They called me calculating. They called me a genius. I didn't care. I was just alive. The legal battle was ugly. Months of depositions, courtrooms. But I had Harper, and I had the truth. Marcus's charm didn't work on a judge. Not against that slideshow, not against Victoria's 8 years of text messages, not against Kessler's financial reports. They tried to say I was unstable, grieving, vengeful. His lawyer actually tried to suggest I'd fabricated the insurance policy as revenge for him. Having a child. But the paperwork didn't lie. The bank transfers didn't lie. Diane. Oh, Diane. She lost everything. The collectors her husband owed, they didn't wait. As soon as the story hit the news, they seized the house, the museum, the fake art, the replica jewelry, her whole house of cards. I hadn't just blown it over. I'd set it on fire. She tried to claim she knew nothing, that she was just a concerned mother. But that email, that one single stupid email for the new policy, that was the nail in her coffin. Marcus took a plea deal. The DA told me it was a solid one, conspiracy to commit fraud, insurance fraud, a few other things. 12 years. He got 12 years in prison. I sued them both in civil court for fraud, for emotional distress, for everything. I won. It wasn't even a fight. I got my grandmother's inheritance back, all of it. And the settlement, the damages. Let's just say I took everything. I took back my money. I took back my future. I took back my life. So, where am I now? It's been 2 years. I'm not in that loft. I sold everything in it. Every stick of furniture. I live in a small house now, with a garden. It's quiet. It's mine. For a long time, I just healed. But that rage, it didn't just go away. It turned into something else. It turned into a purpose. I went back to school. I got certified. Today, I own a small consultancy, a financial security firm, but not for corporations. I help women who are in the dark. I teach them how to read the fine print, how to spot the red flags in a bank statement, how to see the signs of financial manipulation. I'm the person I wish I'd had. And Victoria, it's funny. The world, the media, they expected us to hate each other. We were the wife and the other woman. But that was his narrative. We were just two women who were lied to by the same man. We were the only two people on earth who really understood. We met for coffee during the trial. We supported each other. We became friends. Real friends. Riley. She's 9 now. She's incredible. She's bright, and she's funny, and she's resilient, and she calls me Aunt Sienna. Last weekend, the three of us, we were at the park. I was pushing her on the swing, and I looked at them. Victoria was laughing. This real easy laugh, and I felt happy. I survived happy, but truly happy. He tried to ruin us both. He tried to set us against each other. And instead, he accidentally built us a new family. We built a new family. I think about my grandmother a lot. That dream. Was it really her? Was it her breaking through, smelling like lavender to warn me? Or was it just me? Was it my own subconscious? The part of me that knew? The part of me that saw the little things? The way he tensed up when I talked about my inheritance? The way Diane's smile never, ever reached her eyes? Was my own mind, my own strength. screaming at me in the only way it knew how, using the face, the voice of the one person I trusted most in the world. I don't. I don't think I'll ever really know. And you know what? I don't think it matters, whether it was her spirit or my own. She saved my life. The strength she gave me, it saved me. That was her real inheritance. This story, it was hard to tell, but I'm really glad you were here to listen. It feels good to finally let it all out. It's amazing how stories can connect us, isn't it? I'd love to know where my story is being heard. If you feel like it, let me know in the comments. What city? What state? What country? Where are you listening from? And if you want to hear more stories about survival, about fighting back, maybe subscribe to the channel.